Hey everybody, want to check in here at the end of week 4. We're almost at the end of the course. We got one more week left. I appreciate everybody's effort last week, considering that we had a holiday sort of thrown in the middle of that week. But you all are doing a really good job and keeping up really well. The thing that really blew me away this week is I was all set at the as sort of a wrap up to week 4 to come in here and kind of do a blog where I would help make connections between your challenge and some of the concepts and ideas we talked about earlier in the course. And then you had this many levels of inquiry paper, and you had the 7E sort of model thrown out there as an example of how you can design these things. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to try to make some connections for people. And then I went in and read assignment 12, all the posts, and I was just blown away at the connections you're making. Not only are you making these connections, but you're making them in very thoughtful, deep ways. You're really reflective about your own practice. You really looked at this and saw the opportunity to do these things as a real teacher. Sometimes people look at project-based inquiry learning and they think, well, that's great. It's a nice theory. It's a nice idea, but it's kind of ambiguous, and I really don't know where to start. And somebody posted that they were appreciative of having these papers because they thought, well, you know, the paper really kind of provided me a procedure and a structure, and it gave me the help to see that I could do this on my own, which is exactly where we're going here in week 5. In week 5, you're going to begin to plan your own PBIL, and you're going to, for those of you familiar with backwards design, you're going to see some elements of there. And I've provided you a sort of blank template for the 7E model. You realize you don't have to use that model if you don't. Some of you commented that you prefer 5E or 6E. You might have another inquiry model that you prefer. That's fine. You certainly can structure it any way you like. But it's good to have a structure because developing a PBIL takes time. Not only is it iterative in its development, meaning that you'll come back and look at certain parts of it and redesign things and then go forward in the sequence and do something else. And then you'll come back to an earlier spot in the sequence and say, well, this doesn't fit well now. I need to change it. But then after you go in the classroom with it a couple times, it might take you a couple of sort of runs with the unit to sort of flesh out all the bugs and get it sort of working smoothly. And you learn something every time, no matter how well you are, or how good of a project-based inquiry teacher you are, or how well you understand this stuff. It takes time. It really does. So anyway, I just wanted to, I was going to post to sort of summarize what happened last week, and you know, your words were better than mine. I was just blown away by the assignment 12 reaction and posts and conversation. And so what I did is I sort of took some of the posts that I found really enlightening and helped me see a lot of things even, and put them up here and just sort of shared my thoughts about them. So I would strongly encourage you to kind of read through all of this. I know it's a little bit more than maybe you expected, but really good ideas. Really interesting to see how people see the 7E model differently. And in the end, it doesn't really matter. That's fine. As long as you find a structure that works for you. You're going to see that Peter suggested in the example down here, Peter has a certain sort of flow or way he saw the RRV challenge, and then Kirsten sees it in a totally different way with sort of iterative progressions through the exploring and then explaining and then elaborating and then going back through that cycle over and over again, so that there's explain or explore, explain, elaborate, explore, explain, elaborate. And if we had investigated other variables, that probably would have been much more apparent to you. If I had said, okay, after this, we're scrapping the RRV prototype because of costs or whatever reason, and NASA's decided that they just want to use simple parachutes, then I might ask you to design a parachute that falls slowly and predictably. And all of the things you learned in the last challenge would apply to designing that parachute, but that would be an extend and a way to extend things. But the way that extend and evaluate's been articulated in these other posts and the ones you'll see down below here are absolutely fine. There's no reason to think that one is better than the other. They're really not. You just want structure, and you want to know where you're going. You want to identify those learning goals and make sure that your sequence is meeting your learners where they need to be met and getting them to go where you want them to go. The many levels of inquiry paper I thought was really interesting. People always ask, well, you know, which is right? Is it guided inquiry? Is it open inquiry? Is it, it's probably closer to guided inquiry, but if you look at the RRV challenge, there are aspects of it that are very highly structured. right? I give you the prompts to design your experiment, and I give you the prompts to carry out your experiment. But that's because I've done this with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, and they need that sort of prompting. If I were to do this in a high school classroom, I might not do that much prompting. So some high school teachers might look at this and say, that's really pretty structured, and some elementary school teachers might say, those prompts aren't enough. So you really do have to sort of meet your students where they are. So it doesn't really matter what, how we label this particular challenge as whether it's one kind of inquiry or another, but rather we recognize that we can shape the inquiry and mold it and structure it in certain ways so that it meets the needs of our learners and delivers on our learning goals. That's the real point of sort of considering the levels of inquiry. I think it also helps make PBIL a little less scary because it provides some structure for you. So going forward this week, you're going to have to build your own, as we talked about. If this is sort of a work on your own situation, but I would encourage you to create discussion in the open forum. Some of you have been in there, but if you have questions, feel free to post questions in there or bounce ideas off other people. You can also share, obviously, your ideas with your group if you want. And the other thing, is to email me. I have no problem answering questions that way. And of course, we'll be in the chat room. So next week on Monday, if you need to check in and get some questions answered. So hope everything's going well, and keep up the good work. You all are doing really just terrific. And I'm so pleased with your effort, and I really hope you're getting a lot out of the course. All right, have a great week. Bye, everybody.